Are you guys ready to talk about parenting? All things parenting?
Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome. Let's do it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Midwest Married. I'm Matt. I'm not Matt.
And I'm Matt.
That's Matt. I'm Amy. And we have our very best friend, Krista, here today. Krista actually brought this topic to my attention recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come on an episode and talk about this because you are my go-to person when I have parenting questions.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I feel like you have all the wisdom and all the things, and you're just someone that, I really look up to when it comes to parenting.
Well, right back at you.
All right, awesome. Well, you informed me of the new Surgeon General's warning that came out regarding intensive parenting.
Like the same kind of warning that's on cigarettes?
The same kind.
Okay.
A Surgeon General's advisory is a public statement that calls the American people's attention to an urgent public health issue and provides recommendations for how it should be addressed. Advisories are reserved for significant public health challenges that require the nation's immediate awareness and action. This advisory calls attention to the importance of parental stress, mental health and well-being, stressors unique to parenting, and the bidirectional relationship between parental mental health and child outcomes. So that was the official statement from the Surgeon General. So yes, in the same category as cigarettes, as opioid use. And this is not something where they release a whole bunch of warnings all the time. The last one prior to this parental advisor warning was in 2021 when they put out a warning about youth mental health. And then the one before that was in 2016 about e-cigarette use.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
Right. So like 3 in the past 10 years.
So are they advising that we stop reproducing? What is
No.
What is their warning? What is their suggestion?
I mean, we're going to get all into that. But it's all about this idea that parents nowadays are so intense about the way that they raise their children that it's causing significant stress to parents, which then ultimately trickles back down to the children, because we know as a well-known phenomenon, the more stress parents have, then the worse outcomes for children. Like children absorb that stress. They note it. They feel it. They share it with their parents. And so they were saying that back in the day when our parents were parenting, things were less stressful for a number of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So intense parenting.
I feel
Krista,
that.
yeah. What would your
feel that.
definition of intense parenting be?
I think when I first saw the warning, it made me think a lot about just the expectations that there are now. I think there's always been high expectations of parents. And child rearing has probably never been an easy thing.
Right.
But what came to my mind is so many families that I know now have both parents working outside the home.
Yes.
A lot of people have jobs that have very high expectations of them, requiring both parents to be gone for many hours of the day. And how do you make all of those transitions fit? So, you've got a 8 to 5 job, but maybe school doesn't start till 8:45. What do you do with your child?
Right.
Our school is done at 2:15. I work until 4:30. Like, how do you always fill those gaps if both parents are always outside the home? And I think it just, that added stress of having to do the mental gymnastics of putting all those pieces together, all the comings and goings and pickups and drop-offs, and who's going to fill in those pieces, and trying to find people that you trust to be with your children in the times that you cannot. I think is an added level of stress that maybe we didn't see prior, when maybe not every family had to have both parents working.
Right. And beyond that, I do think that even this applies when households do have a stay-at-home parent as well. I think that they're, in comparison to years ago, even those stay-at-home parents are having a higher level of stress as well, just because of the expectations that are put on parents nowadays.
Like how every activity you enroll your child in is like all in,
right?
It's 4 or 5 days a week. The commitment is so big. I mean, I played lots of sports as a child, but played rec sports, and sometimes they were a couple days a week, and it was kind of casual. And, you played and it was fun. And I remember having bigger commitments, of course, once I was in middle school and high school. But I remember as a child, like playing neighborhood rec sports, and it was not the kind of commitment that my child is committed to at this point.
Mm-hmm. And then throw multiple kids in there, and everybody has sports that are going on 3 to 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Hockey. It's soul sucking.
But it's also I've really enjoyed being a hockey mom lately. Yeah, I don't know. It's something completely new to me.
With sitting with the other parents, and you're all doing it, right? You're all together. You're all in this together.
We're meeting new families, new parents. Yeah, that's also sometimes stressful, right? Mm-hmm. So according to 2023 data, 33% of parents report high levels of stress in the past month compared to only 20% of other adults. So a bit of a difference there. And 48% of parents say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming compared to only 26% of other adults. So I think that statistic in and of itself, 48%, half the parents every single day are completely overwhelmed.
I believe that to be true, though. And I think there's so many things that contribute to that. Mm-hmm. So it's the time, it's the expectations. I also think, we're a hockey family too. And hockey is awesome. And we have a lot of fun. And my son's game today was a blast. Mm-hmm. But then because we did that, nobody went to the grocery store. Right. So now tonight we're scrambling. Like, what are we going to pack for lunches tomorrow? Who's going to run to the store now?
Mm-hmm. Pop-Tarts.
And then there's this expectation. You can't really send Pop-Tarts, or you're going to, that's not healthy. Your kid's not going to
you're supposed to.
And they're supposed to get a fruit and a vegetable. And, there's all these things to be thinking about. And I think comparison is in a space that's so apparent right now with social media and that I think you can see other people thriving and you just think, I'm not doing well enough as a parent. Or maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. But according to these statistics, I don't think that's true.
You're not the only one.
So I think you have this sense that like everybody's doing it better than me, and always feeling like I need to be a better parent and a better employee and a better spouse. And then it just all kind of
this is the most important job that we have in our lives, to raise our children. Like, that's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Yeah. I remember thinking quite often when the kids were in the infant and toddler stage, and even like I said this out loud to my friends, to my mom, anybody who would listen. It's like, gosh, I really thought I was going to be better at this. I feel like I'm not good at this. And my kids, they were always well taken care of, like, especially in retrospect, like when I can look back and give myself grace now that they're in a little bit older stage where I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is more my stage that I enjoy, right? But I remember thinking to myself, I'm not doing a good job. I feel like I'm not doing a good job. I thought I was going to be better at this.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. Those were rough days.
Often.
Yeah, they were busy.
And I think it's cyclical too. Like, there are some days I think as a parent you wake up and you think, yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
We did it. We made it all the places.
Yeah. How did we do that?
But we were
10 points.
Yeah, we're doing it. And then the very next day it can be so humbling.
Yes.
To be like, wow, now everybody's attitude is different. Morale is low. Maybe not everybody got enough sleep. And suddenly it feels like, wow, we're not very good at this. And we're really struggling.
Yep.
So would you say you're intense parenting? Is there an actual definition of this? Like the warning, like
the warning doesn't call it intense parenting. It's just the advisory pertaining to parental stress and mental health and well-being.
okay.
So kind of we've come, like people have analyzed this, right? And the New York Times and other places have kind of termed it, okay, this is kind of related to intense parenting, to kind of trying to do, because they talk in the article, all 36 pages, about trying to provide your kids the best so that they can succeed in an environment and a culture that is not currently set up to support parents. And so I read in a couple different articles, which was really interesting. One of the reasons why this is thought to be happening is because of the separation between basically incomes, like the middle income, that wage gap between what is wealthy and what is middle income and low income, because that is widening and becoming more. We are all freaking out that our children, unless we prepare them to be the best that they can be, they're going to end up poor and they're going to end up worse than what we are. Right? Everybody wants, and it's a little bit of the American dream, that their children does better than they ever did in life. Well, with that widening wage gap, we've talked about it before. What are the chances that our children are going to be able to go buy their own home with housing prices as it is? We want to give them the very best shot at succeeding and being a median income earner. We don't expect our kids to go out there and be the most wealthy individuals ever, right? We just want them to have a comfortable life. But right now, with that wage gap really widening, the pressure on our shoulders is that we need to prepare them enough to make sure that they are in a profession that allows for that to happen. Are you with me on that, or do you totally think that's baloney?
No, I'm with you.
Okay.
I never said I was against you.
Yeah, no, you were. I saw it in your gaze that you were either processing or disagreeing. So I was going to ask. Maybe
I'm off on this, but throughout time, isn't it just the parent's responsibility? And in my mind, that's your job, is to make them the best versions of themselves. And that's what you hope for. So regardless of I understand the income gap, and I realize what you're saying.
It's the level of fear, though.
You're putting the pressure on yourself because you don't feel like you're going to get them there.
Or that society isn't set up in a way that average parenting is going to succeed. You got to go above and beyond. You got to put your kids in 5 extracurriculars. You got to, they need to learn piano and be smart. And everybody's health is going to shit. So you need to make sure that they are exercising and eating healthy. There's so many categories and things that you need to do. And the fear of not being able to accomplish that is more than it was when those things, the medium income level, were easier to accomplish. When back in the day, families survived on one income, right? Mm-hmm. Now it demands 2 incomes. And how do you let them live comfortably, not overwork themselves? How do they succeed?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a story. We've been chatting really a long time for this intro because I've got lots of things to say, apparently.
Yeah, I just really think it's how you define intensive parenting and what your definition of that is. Because I could see some people, for instance, you just said putting their kids into 5 different extracurriculars, or is it, I need to buy my kid a cell phone at 8, or doing all the.
But don't you think some of those things are additive? You think you're going along swimmingly, right? And my oldest son just entered middle school, and I was like, we're holding our own. We're doing okay. And then you realize they have to choose a music. And my child's been always well-read. He plays sports. But we sort of dropped the ball. My kid doesn't know how to read music.
Neither do I.
He never had a music lesson, and all of a sudden he has to choose band, orchestra, or choir. Okay, I would love for him to be involved in music. So you show up the first day of middle school and you pick an instrument. My child picked the cello.
I just love that.
Perfect.
Okay. He has
It's like the largest instrument.
Like he has zero exposure to music. And
That's
suddenly
okay.
now we have a cello at home. We have a cello at school. None of us know what to do with it.
I bet they're expensive too.
And we yes. And we feel like I feel overwhelmed by the whole experience because I'm like, I don't even know how to teach you to do this. I don't know where to hire a tutor. Is that the expectation?
Schmidt
I'm not
music.
sure.
But
And
then
then when
there's
you play
more
hockey,
time,
when do you go
energy,
to a
money.
cello lesson?
I'm just
You
going to
know?
let you in on a secret. Playing the cello isn't going to make him the best version of himself. It's going to be okay. So just
But
let that one
music-
just fall off.
Let that one go.
Music
Let that
theory,
go.
though, I
He
mean,
can-
there's a
he can
lot of
drop and go to
things.
choir next year.
A lot of things where that music and learning that, it's like a whole new language. Very good for brain development. See, here I am over here
So then
laying
you
on the
feel-
guilt.
Right. So then you feel like it's just one more thing of like, how
Yes.
do we fit this into our life? How do I support you in the best way I can?
Right.
And at this point, I have rendered the fact that like he's going to learn as much about the cello as he learns in orchestra class this
Perfect.
semester,
Okay.
and we'll just see what brings the
See if
second
he has a
semester.
passion for it
Yes.
or not, and then put
Yeah.
however much energy into it. I have a definition for you, Matt.
Hit- oh.
You were wanting the definition. I
I
looked
do,
it
yeah.
up. Intensive parenting is a parenting style that involves parents prioritizing their children's needs and success above their own. It's characterized by parents investing a lot of time, money, and energy into their children's development. Characteristics of this approach are that it is child-centered, putting the children's need first. It is protective. It is involved, labor-intensive. Parents spend a lot of time and energy raising their kids. And it is financially expensive. So that is the definition
So life.
of intensive
Yep,
parenting.
got it.
Never
Everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of trying to do your best is
Yep.
a little bit of how I interpret that. Okay. So
Okay.
we're going to move on to a story. And actually, I'm going to do this. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode today, you guys. I'm going to do a twofer. I'm going to read, because they're both short, I'm going to read two different stories that are very similar, but a little different. And
Go.
then we're going to go for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Burnout as a parent. Does it get better? I'm feeling defeated. When my partner and I decided to have a baby, there were these big plans. I knew parenting would be hard, but I feel like I'm drowning. I feel so trapped. I'm a stay-at-home mom, partly by choice, partly by necessity. There isn't a lot of options for childcare in my area. The wait lists for full-time care are 2+ years long. Amazing. So I left my position as a store manager when my daughter was 18 months, as I was off parental leave with no childcare options available, and took a demotion to become a store associate. Most days are good at home, but there are weeks like this is where I am an emotional wreck. My daughter doesn't sleep well and never has. If I get 6 hours of sleep a night, it's nearly a miracle. Normally, I run off of 4 to 5. I'm chronically tired. Occasionally, if my husband is home, I can attempt to go back to bed when he wakes up, but it's rare I get any sleep as my daughter is right at my door crying to come in. I want to be a gentle parent and I do my best, but when I'm extra sleep deprived, I'm so short with her, grumpy, and checked out. I spend most of my time holding back tears or actively crying. I hate it, and slowly I'm beginning to hate myself. In truth, I've lost myself and I have no idea who I am anymore or how to make time to work on it. I have no support system. As my mother passed away in 2022, my family abandoned me when we lost her. Friends are few. I'm autistic and my ability to communicate and maintain friendships is severely lacking. I'm in therapy, but my sessions are less than once a month due to lack of services available. I don't know if I'm looking for advice, venting, or hoping there is someone out there in solidarity. So I chose that one because I just felt like it would kind of sing to the masses of parents of young kids. I remember feeling, especially at times, very similarly, very burnt out, very like just trying to do your best,
Mm-hmm.
Thought I'd be better at this.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, we're going to go on to the second one, which is for parents of a little bit older kids, because I think sometimes people think that that burnout is just really isolated to the infant and toddler years, but I don't think it necessarily is. Okay. This is titled Parental Burnout Hitting a Decade into Parenthood. I know the topic of burnout is quite common in the early years of parenthood. I remember how tired and how all-encompassing motherhood was in the infant and toddler stage. But to be honest, I didn't feel burnt out. I think I was still riding high through the adrenaline of those early years. And also I found all the milestones to be very motivating for me. Every new food, every first that came along was such a huge deal. And honestly, I really enjoyed that 0 to 5 age very much. There was always something new happening. The cuteness factor definitely helped too. I found an incredible amount of joy in being a parent to young kids. If anything, I feel like parenting has only gotten more tiresome and wearying as the years have gone by. My kids are 10, 9, and 6 now, and I'm just tired. I'm just so completely done. There's no reserve energy left. I thought everything would get easier, but it hasn't. 10 years in, and I feel so depleted. Very few of my friends seem to be in the same place as me. Most people seem to relish the older years and say it's much easier than the infant and toddler stage, and I feel very alone in this. I do celebrate many of the new milestones that happen as my kids have gotten older, but I just feel less joy now. I feel badgered by the constant need of my kids. Someone is always losing something, needing help finding something, doesn't want to brush their teeth, is fighting with their older sibling, isn't picking up after themselves. There is a ton more attitude and anger from the 10 and the 9-year-old these days, and the battling against screen time is a constant war. Food pickiness, which wasn't a thing in the younger years, has skyrocketed. I just feel spent. Like Bilbo Baggins once said, I feel thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. And I also don't know what to do about it. They go to school during regular school hours, so it's not like I don't get a break. I have regular hobbies outside of motherhood and also a career. My husband is a great partner and does a lot. So what do I do to find joy again? I've tried gratitude journals, I've tried meditation, and I just still feel so done. It just took 10 years to get to this place. So that was a stay-at-home mom and a mom who works, both kind of in similar feelings of burnout in 2 different stages. Any advice or commiseration or thoughts? Krista, you take it.
All right.
You got it.
It's kind of a lot to think about. And I think
know.
every stage is hard in its own way. And everybody finds, I think, the joy in different parts of it. But I definitely feel like it's a different kind of tired. Like for me, anyway, when I had little infants, toddlers.
Because your kids are how old now?
5, 7, and 12.
For everybody else. We know they're kids, but
yes,
yeah.
5, 7, and 12. So when they were infants, it's the sleep deprivation because you're not sleeping through the night. Everybody needs you
So
for
hard.
everything. But we were home a lot more, which in some ways for me was a little bit restorative in the fact that, like, yes, I was tired, but you could be home and you could snuggle on the couch and still have a cup of tea and, like, you might have a sleeping baby on your chest, but you could talk to your spouse. You could maybe read a book. There were things that I think I could do to help fill my cup in a different way. And now that my kids are older and involved in a lot of things, it's running. And the running for me, I love it and it's exhausting.
Yes.
Like I love being at all of their sporting events. I love being at their activities, whether it's Cub Scout Pinewood Derby or a hockey game or all of the above in the same day. I don't want to miss any of it because I really do enjoy it, but it's also so exhausting. And you never, I feel like we're always like divide and conquer. Who's going with this kid? Who's going with that kid? You know, when can we actually sit down and all eat a meal together? Who's going to cook said meal? Because we're never home. It feels like long enough to do that.
And then the pressure knowing
that.
Yeah. Not to cut you off there, but the pressure knowing that family meals are important. You're supposed to sit down and eat supper as a family all the time.
Yes.
How do you do that when you also have to do all these other things?
Yeah. And I think it's the pressure of constantly running. I'm also fortunate to have a very supportive spouse and partner. But I also think that's hard because we do crave that time to just be home as a family. And when we have that occasional night or afternoon when we're all home, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to all be home and together, but it's so rare. So I can feel for both of those stages. And I think like you can think, oh, we're going to make it through the toddler years and it's going to be so much better. And in some ways it is. And in some ways there's just new challenges that arise. And I think as your kids get older too, like when they're little, they love you so much.
Yes.
And then they become preteens and you're not so sure if they love you anymore. I think they do. But sometimes my 12-year-old really just grunts instead of like a conversation. You know, it depends on the day. Some days he really wants to talk. And other days you're like, hey, how was your day, bud? And he's like, ugh. That's all you get?
And that's all you get.
Okay, well, maybe tomorrow will be better.
Yeah. Matt, have you, especially, okay, so we've done a lot of mom talking here from a dad's perspective. Parenting. Burnout. Like, are you feeling it too? Do you put the same kind of pressure on yourself as what we are talking about?
Yeah, I would say that burnout is real in all forms, whether it be parenting, work, building a house, you know, whatever you're applying it to, right? I'll tackle this based on your stories. I think for the first mom, when they're young, that is exhausting. I definitely didn't enjoy all the crying and like how much they need you and to try to fill your cup. If you're not doing things for yourself, I think that's tough. So what is it that you need to fill that cup up? Is it, hey, you need to go on a vacation. Hey, you need to go on a girls trip, whatever that may be, or go backpacking the Pacific Northwest by yourself. I'm not sure, whatever it might be. Go and do that.
Sometimes those things might be out of reach though. Finances, time.
They might be, and then smaller chunks, but
make it more mini.
Yeah.
Something for yourself that's within reach.
Right.
I think that can be hard though too, because something I do for myself is I like to run and I'm in a running group, but that definitely sacrifices my ability to get enough sleep. And I do feel like sometimes you have to make those choices and they're not easy to make. And it's not the best either, but you're like, I could get 8 hours of sleep or I could get up earlier because there's no way I'm going to go to bed any earlier, but I could get up earlier, sleep less and go for a run. And for me, that usually wins out because it does fill my cup in a way that sleep doesn't, I guess. But it does always feel like this constant sacrifice in some way when you think about like putting your kids ahead of yourself and like, how do you find that time for yourself?
Yeah. Like you're sacrificing in order to take care of yourself.
So it's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not alone in that.
No,
No,
you're not.
I get you. I follow. All right. I'm going to tackle the next one. And then I have something I told somebody once that I'm going to wrap it up with.
Sure.
The person that has the older kids now, working the job, has hobbies, I would say that's similar to me, right? It's still hard. You would think, oh, let's have our kids close together. Emmett and Eloise, they're going to get along great and be the best siblings ever and play together maybe. No, they fucking hate each other sometimes. Probably 80%.
No. Sometimes it feels like
jokes,
that, though.
Jokes. But it feels like that at times. And
right.
can you guys just not get along for 10 minutes and give me some peace and quiet while I'm trying to put a shelf together or read a book, or maybe I just want to scroll for 5 minutes, and you just, it drives you nuts, right? So then at the same rate, it's what do you need in your life to fill your cup? For us, we go on vacations and we go places and we do things and we get babysitters and we go out for a date night here and there. And burnout's real across the board. You just have to figure out what it is that you're missing right now that's going to fill your cup. And I'll say, for anybody that doesn't have kids and is, maybe you're thinking about it or you have them already. I told this to one of my friends who they hadn't had kids yet. And he's like, I don't know if we're going to have kids. Like, do you and Amy, like, are you glad you did that? And I looked at him because we were in the throes of having zero sleep. And I said, yeah, we don't regret having kids. Not one bit. If we would go back, we'd do the same exact thing. But I'll tell you this, it's the best love you're ever going to feel and have. And it's just so different. And it's great. It's rewarding. But damn, kids suck. And they are soul-sucking little monsters. And you will want to strangle them. Don't. Okay, don't. You'll want to. But
self-regulate.
Self-regulate.
It's the best, hardest job you'll ever have.
Yes.
Yes. So that's what I told them. And here they are. They have a 2-month-old, I think, or 3-month-old.
Well, part of this is that, also in the first time in a very long time, population is actually declining. A lot more people are choosing not to have kids. I think because of the culture where parenting is not super valued these days. It's not thought as highly upon. And because of the stressors that come along with it, a lot of people are choosing not to have kids. And to have a functioning society, we do need to be reproducing. I'm not like, everyone should have kids. Personal choice. Like, I'm very pro do what's best for you. And there are definitely times where I've thought, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to have a little more freedom?
Is that population as a whole or strictly in the U.S.?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I know for sure in the U.S., but I do think that other countries are struggling with it too.
I thought it was a myth.
No, I don't think it's a myth.
Okay.
Have you heard similar things?
I have heard similar things. I'm not sure. It might just be the U.S., but I don't know that for sure.
And I don't know if it's per se declining or just like not rising at the rate that they need for like projected healthy.
It makes sense.
Society.
You don't need 7 kids to run the farm anymore. You don't.
Well, and I also think the cost of raising kids is so expensive now. Like a lot of people can't afford to have multiple children in daycare or whatever it might be. But then if you're not putting your children in daycare, then someone needs to be home with them. And
you have to make 2 incomes.
Financial stress there. And I think we have probably seen some choices about that in regards to how many children you may choose to have based on what you can afford to support.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And then people are waiting longer to have kids because they need to go to school in order to maintain a livable income. And putting that off means sometimes higher rates of infertility too, which can be really, really hard. So I think that there's a lot of different things in that. Yeah. But going back to the Surgeon General's advisory, this touches on one of their key points. They have 7 key points. One of them being parental isolation and loneliness is a big contributor to the reason that parents are so stressed. And so in a 2021 survey, approximately 65% of parents and guardians and 77% of single parents in particular experienced loneliness, compared to 55% of non-parents. So a significant difference in that arena. So with that burnout, especially with our first story, I'm wondering, is she feeling a little bit isolated having those infants, especially if other people aren't? With having kids in the same ages.
Well, this phrase always is, it takes a village, but not everybody has that village. And I think if you do, you're so lucky and you got to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And that village can be hard to find, if it's, trying to break into a new group and finding people who are in a like stage of life as you. I mean, if, we're fortunate, our kids are similar ages and enjoy spending time together. And so when we get our families together, things are pretty smooth and the kids go and play and they have a great time. And that allows us as parents to recharge a little bit and enjoy each other's company. But I think there are a lot of people that don't have that or don't have a great way of finding those connections, especially when your kids are really, really young.
Yes.
Yeah. I think your circle shrinks from, you look at how many people we would see when we didn't have kids and the things that we did. Weekly volleyball night, weekly fishing league, just all the things that we would go out and do. And then you have kids and then you're obligated to, oh, guess what? Bedtime is at 7. So you're no longer going out. Your circle shrinks. So yeah, if you don't have that village, that would be tough. I can definitely see people getting a little lonely.
And sometimes it's hard to find people who have kids your age until your kids are in some kind of activity or join school where they can meet other parents. But otherwise, if you're like, when I moved here and I had kids when I wasn't from this area, it took a while to like find a group of moms that also had kids were our age. And like, then it's like, do you want to be my friend?
Moms that walk the mall and exercise in the mall in the morning.
Yeah, right.
Find a group.
You got to find your group.
I love that you brought up the village because that's, again, also part of this that they brought up in their study. You're so spot on with your feelings, that loss of that generational living in the villages. There has become such a mentality among our culture where it's you chose to have kids, so you need to raise them and you need to deal with them. Instead of you have children, let's all band together and help you raise these children. There's also been a decline in community meeting places like churches. People aren't really going to churches as much as they used to anymore. I mean, I was a once a week church goer. I had a few really good friends growing up, and that was like the community from the very young infant stage where you'd go and there were people to help and take care of you if people needed it. People aren't doing that quite so much. And then also, I thought that this was an interesting point. Parents with higher education were more likely to move far away from grandparents in order to get the job. So I think that that's really contributes to that isolation, that loss of village.
No babysitters. Rough.
Yeah. Well, your parents live like 3 hours away. And Matt, your husband is also Matt.
He's also Matt.
Yeah. His parents are in town.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes that grandparent perspective of like, well, how involved is too involved? And I think that there's a difference sometimes between in-laws versus your own parents to make it a little bit more difficult as far as that village goes.
Yeah, and like their comfortability with watching your kids and at what stage and age are they comfortable doing that. And I think especially for us, like when I first became a mom, I was pregnant with my first baby. I went to prenatal yoga. I met a bunch of women who were in the same stage of life as I was. We were great friends. We had a beautiful village when my first son was born because we all had babies and were on maternity leave, and we'd meet for coffee and go for walks. And they're still some of my very best friends. But as time rolls on, I never found that with my second and third, partly because I couldn't go to prenatal yoga as routinely because I had another child at home to care for during my second and third pregnancies. And so I feel like sometimes that kind of degrades because you have so many other demands for your time that those opportunities to find that village can be harder.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, speaking of villages, again, that's happens to be our next story.
Okay.
Am I the asshole for telling my daughter the reason she doesn't have a village is due to being overbearing? My daughter, 29, has one child named Sally. We have a large family with lots of aunts and uncles. At the beginning, everyone was super happy to help out and be the village. The problem started when my daughter started having issues with every single thing they did when helping her out. At first, it was big things that should be respected, like respecting nap time. But over time, it started to get smaller and smaller. It got to the point where she was really nitpicky just to nitpick. Whenever someone would babysit or help her out, she would be texting them constantly or basically be hovering over their shoulder. Some examples: Aunt Jen's basement isn't safe. The kid doesn't go into her basement. Wash the dirty baby clothes with the wrong softener. Food wasn't correct, always too hot or too cold. The list goes on and on. To make it worse, she has an attitude that she is the one doing us a favor by letting us near Sally, and not that we are helping her out, since none of us need to help out. I have talked to her about this before. I understand she is a first-time parent, but this is very frustrating. It's all her way, and she won't accept anything else. It got to the point where they don't help her anymore, and they were tired of her nitpicking everything that they do and where everything is done. She complains that no one helps her and basically everyone sucks. I told her the reason she doesn't have a village anymore is due to her being too overbearing. She called me a jerk and hasn't answered my texts. Am I the asshole?
Go ahead.
I think this is hard, right? And
Yeah.
I think it goes a little bit, I can see a little bit of both sides. I think you have to choose your battles. If you want help, I think it's okay to set a boundary, like nap time.
Mm-hmm.
If you have certain dietary preferences, certain things like that, I think are okay to say as a parent, this is my preference. This is my child. This is how we do it. I'd like you to respect some of these boundaries. I also think when you choose to let someone else or ask someone else to help watch your child, you have to trust them. So you should be making a good choice in who you choose.
Yes.
And then there also has to be a little bit of grace. Like maybe they don't choose the same laundry detergent, or maybe, God bless them for doing your laundry, right? Yeah, maybe they don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're going to help you and you're going to accept that help, I think there has to be a little bit of leeway and a little bit of flexibility. It might not be the way I would do it, but as long as a child is well cared for and loved and safe, you might have to give a little bit if you want help. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. I can remember, I think one of us maybe scolded my mother once upon a time. And it was, we didn't raise our kids out of a book. And yeah, there's some challenges with being a new parent, especially on what you want, how you think things should go, how they actually go. And yeah, there can be a lot of tiffs. So is OP the asshole? Probably not, but should also have some, hey, I know you're doing the best you can, but this is what's going on. Try to just ease up a little bit and start asking yourself, does this really matter long term?
Is this really important to me? During this story, I was thinking about the exact same relative who I believe the quote was, your next child you will not raise out of a textbook like you are this one.
Was that the quote? Yeah, something like that.
Burns into my memory. I'm still a little offended by that. And I still raise my second child with very similar. Yes, I think that we did. We did the very same foundational things. Yes, because again, we are all just trying to do the very best we can. Or maybe you could just come at it with a little more love, being like, yeah, I know that you are trying to do all the right things and reading the textbooks and doing everything by the book.
Yeah.
We'll try our best.
Yeah.
There
So
might be some
Opie, no,
things
he's
that might
the
not be as
asshole.
important.
What do
Yes.
the people say?
Overall vote was not the asshole. Not the asshole. If they are babysitting, how does she even know if the food is too hot or too cold?
I was thinking the same thing.
Don't worry. When she cannot get anyone else to watch her child, she will call you. You called her out on her behavior. She should own it. But then they say, oh, I'm not watching Sally. I can't deal with it either. She needs to change her behavior. I'm not putting up with it. It's not worth it. She needs to relax a bit. Maybe it's just in the tone that I read that, but I didn't really care for his response there.
That is tough. Because I do think parents are most often, like you said, doing the very best they can, doing what they think is right, trying to do the best they can by their child. And it's not that they're necessarily trying to be malicious in most cases or trying to be unreasonable. It can certainly, I can look back at some of the choices I made as a young parent and think, maybe that wasn't as important as I thought.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
Hey.
But we all are just learning along the way.
Raised you. Did just fine, didn't I?
That's always real tough.
Mm-hmm. Like, well, when we know better, we do better. Yeah. Here's another thing. Has she been assessed for postpartum anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
It can manifest like that. Speaking from personal experience here, I highly encourage her to seek professional help. Postpartum anxiety is not uncommon and will not disappear on its own in a hurry. I think that's a really great point.
That is a good point.
Because again, with all this parental stress and expectation and it being different back in the day without the internet, you just listened to your elders and you did the best you could, and you didn't have the internet and the wealth of knowledge at the tips of your fingertips telling you both at the same time to do this, but don't do this. Right?
Yes.
Like
so many
sleep train,
perspectives.
but don't sleep train.
Can't
Right?
get him to sleep? Give him some brandy. He'll be fine.
Don't do that.
But yeah, you can go down the rabbit hole to find information to support whatever decision you're making. Like,
Right.
Yeah. So should you sleep train or should you co-sleep or shouldn't you, is your baby gonna
Right. Have attachment issues.
Right.
et
All
cetera.
the things. No matter what thing you choose, there's going to be the positive and the negative, and the internet will roast you regardless.
The internet. It's a special place.
Yeah.
Sure is. So I'm going to circle back a little bit and talk a little bit more about the specific stressors that were cited in the Surgeon General's warning. Maybe should have done this from the beginning, but I'm going to do it now and then dive into one specific one. And these include the list of stressors that they give reasons why parents are under an unprecedented amount of stress in comparison to previous generations and years. And these stressors include, but are not limited to, number one, financial strain, economic instability and poverty. Number two, time demands. Number three, children's health concerns. Number four, children's safety. Number five, parental isolation and loneliness. Number six, technology and social media. And number seven, cultural pressures and children's futures. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit because I had some specific points about the first one, the financial strain. We kind of talked a little bit about it, and it ties in a little bit to our next story that we're going to read. But I found that it was wild that in the last decade, the last 10 years only, childcare prices have grown by approximately 26% in the United States.
I feel that.
It's so expensive.
It is expensive.
That's just childcare, right?
Just childcare.
Sure.
For Emmett just going to the YMCA when he was going there, it was $1,000 a month. And I know that that's cheap in comparison to, and that was like in the older years. It's more expensive in the infant years because they need more people to watch kids. As they get older, teachers can have more kids in their class, right? So
the ratio changes.
The ratio changes, so price goes down a little bit. So ours was $1,000 a month, which is like a mortgage for a lot of people. That was only one child for full-time care. And we are in a part of the country where I think that is probably like half of what other people pay in more higher cost of living areas.
I would also say that a mortgage price is more than $1,000 on average.
Well, yes. I'm just saying some people's mortgage.
Some people's.
I bought this house, this teeny tiny little house years and years ago, and our mortgage for this itty bitty little house is $1,000 a month, which is pretty dang good. That's why we're holding on to it. But
yeah,
we were paying the same. 66% of parents reported feeling consumed by worries regarding money compared to 39% of other adults in 2023. So that's very significant. That's a lot higher.
2024 average mortgage price in the U.S. was $2,209.
All right. So if you have 2 kids, then it's the same price as a mortgage.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. 1 in 4 U.S. parents said there have been times in the past year when they did not have enough money for basic needs, like food for their family, to pay their rent or their mortgage, etc. 1 in 4.
That's staggering.
Yeah.
This is very off topic, and maybe I'll delete it. Maybe I won't. But I went to the grocery store today, and me and Emmett were walking out with our $90 worth of groceries for probably like 1.5, 2 meals. I'm not sure. When I say that, crock-pot meal prepping. So more than just one meal.
Good job, Matt.
There was a kid coming in with a mom, and the gumball machines are there. Can I have a quarter? Roxanne, I only have $15 to feed 5 of us. And I was like, oof.
It's tough.
We are very well off in comparison.
so
but I was
lucky.
like, dang, I wish I had cash because I'd maybe buy you some groceries. I felt bad.
Yeah. Well, that is a lot of people's reality.
Yeah.
It's hard. Everything is expensive.
Yeah, everything's expensive. And I think when you were talking about the cost of childcare and how it has gone up, I mean, I think that's a constant conversation, at least over the years in our house, of like, there were multiple times in raising kids in childcare. We only have 1 child in daycare still, which is so great. But many times the cost of our childcare was more money than one of our salaries.
Yes.
And there was this conversation of like, do you continue to work because your whole paycheck's going to childcare, or do you stay home? And what does that do to your health insurance and your 401k and your ability to re-enter the workforce? And I just think there's so much stress and thought that you have to put into those decisions, and they're not easy decisions to make.
No, definitely not. Moving beyond just the, things are expensive. The U.S. also not having any sort of mandated paid leave or childcare subsidies. That is also something that puts a big financial burden on families, especially when we had both kids, the entire leave that I took was unpaid.
Same.
And so and I was fortunate to be able to save, and we saved our money up and we scrimped and I was able to stay home 12 weeks, which is a lot longer than a lot of people get. A lot of people, I mean, I think average is probably 6 weeks. Some people have to go back even sooner. And I remember at the 6-week mark, I had vaginal births. And at the 6 weeks mark, that's when I was like, I feel like maybe my body is perhaps healed or like close to being healed. Like it took that amount of time. And I remember thinking there are people that have to go back to work 2 weeks after giving birth. Like, And then mamas who have C-sections, I mean, that recovery time is even longer. And so to put that financial strain on families, I think is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is tough.
Some of those other items, real quick.
Sure.
You had listed child's health as one of the things. Why is that any different now, like versus the past?
That goes back to, you remember at the beginning how I said the Surgeon General, the last alert warning that they put out a couple years ago was related to the rapidly increasing and the high rates of children's anxiety and depression.
Screen
and how
time.
that was basically kind of like an epidemic going on.
Sure.
So nearly 3 in 4 parents are extremely or somewhat worried that their child will struggle with anxiety and depression. And technology is a huge piece of that. I think that there have been some studies that point towards the use of social media and technology, and basically our children being so accessible to others at all points in time. So you remember back when we were kids and the internet didn't exist.
Makes me feel old.
Yes.
It's horrible.
Yes, that's as old as we are. Where there were phones on the wall and people could call each other, but there was call waiting and busy signals and, all of that good stuff. You went to school. You had the stress of your peers when you were at school, right? But then you went home and you had a break from that social pressure. And so you were able to run outside or just read a book or be at home with your family or do whatever you had to do. And maybe someone would call you to talk on the phone for 2 hours. And then your mom would get on the line and be like, hey, it's time for you to go to bed. Mom, just 5 more minutes. It's fine. This is real life, you guys. Because you could just pick up another phone somewhere else in the house and you'd be connected.
Listening.
Yes, someone could listen into your conversations from another room. Yeah.
You can always figure out if they were listening by double tapping the receiver.
What?
So on a handheld phone, right?
Yeah.
You pick it up and it has the hang up button.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you double tap it, it goes to a dial tone.
Oh, yes.
So if you double tapped it, you'd be like, can't talk about any sensitive information because there's people eavesdropping.
I never was that smart.
I never tried that either.
And then also that's how you would initiate a 3-way call on.
I thought it was like a star something or other.
No, you just hit the receiver, double tap, it goes to a dial tone, you dial your number, you tap it once, and then you're on a 3-way call. And then you can have.
Okay.
I wasn't that fancy.
No.
And then you couldn't you couldn't add an additional person in. So then you would have to, like, if we wanted to get like the
then
Carls
I would
on,
have to do
then
it.
you would have to do it. And if she wanted to get Maddie Ice on the phone right now, then we'd all be on the phone together at once.
I wasn't that cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then your mom would get really ticked off because she'd be at a different house trying to get through it and be busy.
And then they couldn't.
Because call waiting wouldn't work if you have
Multiple,
a 3-way call.
Yeah.
And then they call the operator, dial 0. And you just say, hey, operator, I'm trying to get through to 218-624-7, blah, 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 blah. And I need you to break that line. And the operator would come on the line. This is the operator speaking. Danette would like to get through. Can you please end these calls? And you knew you were in shit. Yeah, now you know. You heard it here first. All the fun tricks of time.
Anyway, perhaps that was like one little bid for your attention, right? Maybe 2. Maybe you were popular and 2 people called you, right? Whereas nowadays, because of the internet and social media and so forth, kids not only have the pressure at school, which if they have their phones, which usually they're not allowed to have their phones, but I'm sure they're breaking the rules, right? Kids are texting and interacting throughout the day at school much more than just passing notes like we used to do in class, right? And then when they go home, then a lot of these kids have their phones just kind of unlimited. And a lot of them have all of the little pings and the texts and the calls and the webs of, everybody talking to everybody else. And so there's no break from that social interaction for that And that can really hype up the anxiety and depression. And I think that the number of like basically bids for attention, basically, when we were younger was like 5 or 10, and now it's in the thousands. I could look up specific numbers, but it's staggering the amount. So they think that that plays a big role into it for children's health. That's one of the main things that
and trying to
people
navigate
worry
that as
about.
a parent is hard.
Yeah.
We're just entering that phase.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because some kids, my oldest is 12. Some kids have had a cell phone with unlimited access for a couple of years. Some kids have none. And then some kids are like just dabbling in getting their first phone and having all the lockdown things. And it has been fascinating. So right now my son does have a phone. He just got it. It is like totally locked down. We have a password that only as parents we know. So only we can add the phone numbers. And nobody whose number isn't in his phone can contact him.
So he can't dial anything out?
Not unless it's a number that we have saved in his phone.
Does he have a notepad on the phone? Like he could just like take down the number, right? But then you would need to add it to the contacts.
Yes. So that's what he does. So he goes to school and he's like, hey, I got so-and-so's phone number today. Can you add it to my contact list so that I can start to receive the text messages from them? Because otherwise he'll get a request. Like, so if someone gets his phone number, so this week he got added to a group text and there were 30 people on the group text, but you can see all the phone numbers like all the way down. But he can't view any of their messages because they're all blocked. So it just says hidden text, hidden text, hidden text, hidden text. There were like 60 text messages. And I was just like, dude, that's a lot in this short period of time. Like you just got this phone. You got added to this thing that we don't even know who they are. And I think that it's really real. Like, I don't know if I've ever had a group chat with 30 other people at the same time. Like that's a lot of people to be on this conversation to even know who all those people are.
But he's in school. I mean, they're probably all of his
They probably are.
class.
But do you know that for sure? I mean, think about, don't you remember when we went on like AIM and I'm sure that this is all just very innocent, right? But I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
My
Kids
brain
can be very sneaky.
Well, this is what I was saying. I was going to bring it here to AOL. You'd get in a chat room, right? But you get in a chat room with complete strangers, like zero knowledge of anybody, right? This seems like, okay, he knows a few people in the room probably, for sure. He probably knows all of them. But if you know one person in that group, you probably know everybody.
Right. And there's part of me that totally feels that way and is like, oh, we should probably just let him join it. And then there's other part of me that's like, where is the line? Like, how do you know? Where do you draw that boundary? And I think as a parent, it is stressful to navigate that because you don't want your child to be left out. You don't want them to not be invited because part of the reason he got this phone is because he's like, Mom, nobody wants to call you anymore. So I don't get invited to things because their mom has to call you and yada, yada, yada. So you don't want them to be left out and socially isolated, but you also want to make sure that there's like a healthy boundary for your kid. And it is really hard to navigate. It's hard to know what the right thing to do is. And so I think that, again, is like, luckily I have a couple of other moms. I'm like, okay, what are you doing?
Yes.
And like, what does your child have access to? And like, maybe we can make it kind of equitable so that nobody's feeling super like, oh my gosh, my parents are the total
So that
worst.
you're not the only one that has boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it is hard to know where those should be.
I'm right now legit trying to think of what's worse. Having a cell phone open access as a kid, as a 12-year-old, or having American Online, AOL.
Oh, for sure, having the phone access. Yeah. Unlimited.
I guarantee AOL was way worse for me.
I mean, yes, and that probably wasn't good for you, right? Like hindsight. Yeah. You wouldn't want the same for your kid, but think about that. Basically, if you have unlimited access with the internet and everything in the phone in their hand, it's like AOL on steroids. They can search anything, talk to anybody. So I think that having boundaries for your phone, for the kids' phones, is very healthy. And
Amy
our
and
kids
I,
absolutely will have them.
myself and the ladies here lived different lives.
100% true.
That's
Okie dokie. Here's some easy places to start with.
I'm just saying.
With limitations from your phone based on what I have heard from some of our clinical psychologists that I work with. Number one is a boundary of time usage. So you can come to that agreement, whatever is best for your family, but specifically at bedtime, that phone, that device should not be charged in your child's room because it is oh so tempting if that alerts and you wake up. It's so easy to scroll. Then your kid gets less sleep, right?
You can also set it so they can't see anything after a certain hour.
That is also great too. So you probably do that also because kids are sneaky. So even if you're charging it in your room or in the kitchen. Yeah. So having that separation so you can protect their sleep a little bit so they're not doom scrolling all night. That's a really easy place to start. And then especially if there's some signs of some anxiety and depression and your kid, you've opted to use some social media, then, having that conversation, pointing that out and being like, hey, you know what I need, and as an adult, I do this for myself too. If I'm like, gosh, I'm just like, so anxious, or I notice when I am scrolling Instagram, I'm comparing myself to everybody else, feeling like I'm doing a bad job, whether that's taking it off your phone, putting it on the last page of your things, doing something to take a break can be helpful and protective for your mental health. You appear to be disbelieving and not on the same page.
I believe all those things are accurate.
Okay. Maybe I'm misinterpreting all your looks tonight. I'm like glancing over at you and you're just like, oh man.
I think it's great. Kids should be protected. All the safety lockdowns, keeping all the things, in the kitchen. It's good. Yeah.
You're just thinking about your own childhood and how you weren't given any boundaries. And the hooligan shenanigans that you got into. Is that the look I'm interpreting? We'll never know, people. He's not going to tell us. Okay.
I also think your kids are still going to find ways to have shenanigans, probably regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
So the things you can do to try.
Yes. Make it a little harder for them.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
They're always going to push a boundary.
Absolutely. All right. Should we do... Okay, this is a short one and it's more of a question. Let's make this our last one and then we'll just kind of give our thoughts about some of the other points that the Surgeon General's warning discussed. And then we'll wrap it up. How much do extracurriculars help or hinder elementary age kids? We just had a play date with a family that put their kid in about 5 different extracurriculars: choir, piano lessons, golf, wushu, and gymnastics. In contrast, my rule has always been 1 extracurricular at a time because that's how much I can handle, both time-wise and expense-wise. The mom made the comment that she wants the kid to have exposure to different things and see what he likes. She also mentioned starting 3 more classes: Chinese, abacus, and math lessons. Anyways, I just wonder how much that matters in the long run. Like, of course, if a child was exposed to nothing, it wouldn't be good. But if they had 8 extracurriculars, I imagine it's quite overwhelming. I personally grew up poor, so my parents had a 0 extracurricular policy. And now I do wish that I had something. I assume the point of extracurriculars is to learn things you didn't easily learn in the classroom, like teamwork or maybe pride in mastering a certain skill. But if a child goes to school, they will have a chance to learn teamwork or pride in mastering a skill outside the extracurricular too, right? I don't know. I just wonder if there are any longitudinal studies that look at this. Though it might be hard to Oh, wow. Though it might be hard to decouple from socioeconomic factors. So basically, how important are extracurriculars? How much is too much? Are we behind if we're not putting our kids in 5 or more extracurriculars at a time? What is the best way to take care of kids?
Wouldn't parenting be so much easier if we knew the answer to that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
All right, I'm going to just dive in. I'll go first this time. I'll take it off your shoulders here. That seems excessive to me. If they add those 3 things, it's 8 different activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And great, if you're a parent and you have the time to do that, it's summer and you guys aren't doing anything, sure, go and do all the things. That's not realistic for most people.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are at work, their kids are in daycare or kid zone or whatever it might be with grandparents. I'm not sure, but that many extracurricular activities, it's too much. No normal person living a normal life, that seems impossible to me. Now, I will say I am all for being in a sport or 2 sports at a time. I think it does create good opportunities to learn all those things that she said, teamwork and social development and all the things. And yeah, I think being in those sports, it does give you a leg up over other people who aren't as involved as time goes on, especially in high school. If you're involved in sports, I think you get treated better. I also think you're forced to do better in school. There's a lot of benefits, I think, to being involved. And it doesn't have to be sports. For me, it was hockey, and it could be choir, it could be band, it could be drama. I was in DECA. So DECA was huge for anybody that doesn't know what that is. It's high school students competing in real life business situations and competing. So
Interview skills, etc.
Sales, interviewing, putting creative marketing projects together. So yeah, whatever it is, I think being in a group and involved helps.
I would agree with that. What struck me about the story, though, is that I believe they mentioned that these are elementary age students.
Yes.
Which I feel like that's very young to have that many commitments. I mean, I think to their point, like wanting to expose your child to a lot of different opportunities is great.
Agreed.
Because you don't know what they're going to like.
Yes.
They might not like the same things that I like. I have 3 children. They are all very different. Their interests are very different. Mm-hmm. The things they gravitate to are different. And so I love giving them opportunities to try different things to see what sticks for them. But that seems really excessive for a child that young in terms of still maintaining time at home, sleep. Mm-hmm. You know, how do they balance all of that? It would be my question. It seems like a lot.
Mm-hmm. There's a comment that said, sleep and free time are so important for kids. Research tends to show that balance is best.
Do you have any thoughts? You've moderated this episode quite a bit, and you've done a lot of research. You got any thoughts? You got anything? Anything to contribute?
I mean, I agree with you both as I'm listening to you guys and reflecting on my own childhood. We also grew up a little bit less affluently. So my mom was a school teacher, my dad a carpenter for the school district, so didn't make a lot of money. And they had 4 kids. And so whatever opportunities they gave to one child, they wanted to make sure they could give to all children. And so I think my parents did the best to put me into extracurriculars, but especially elementary school age, I will tell you that I did 1 round of a dance class, like a 6-week course. I did 1 season of basketball when I was in 3rd grade. And I did maybe that's it. So I remember always feeling behind my other peers. And I think that I'm probably have overcompensated with my kids as far as like putting them in extracurriculars. Because I remember like at third grade when I joined basketball, that was too late. My skills were behind. Everybody else was better. And I didn't enjoy it because I didn't feel like I had the skills. I mean, maybe it's just my personality looking back. I hated gym class, but I also blamed it on never having had the exposure to sports or developing hand-eye coordination to actually enjoy those things. I wasn't a widely popular kid in school. Kids weren't mean to me, but I was a wallflower. I read a lot of books. I had my couple close friends, but I didn't know like everybody who'd played sports all their lives together. They had such tight-knit groups and friendships, and I wasn't a part of that. In high school, I was able to make more of those choices for myself. I joined speech, I joined drama, I was in band and volunteer.
Tennis. You did
and
tennis.
Well, tennis only every other year. Let's be honest. I wasn't any good at tennis, and I was only there for hanging out with my friends. And so as I got older, you're more independent, you're more able to do some more of those things. And looking at where we all are as professional people, we all made it, regardless if I played sports as a kid who, in elementary school and was afforded extracurriculars, or whether I wasn't. Oh, I did piano. That was one thing. I did piano in elementary. And that was maybe for a few years. So maybe that was the one consistent thing. I'm still not very good at piano. I only practiced at my lessons. But it doesn't work out so well. So we all kind of ended up in similar spots in life-ish. We're all successful, I would say, kind of doing our thing. Nobody had 5 extracurriculars at a time. So maybe, especially if you're a parent who's not in the place where you can afford to send your kid to do all of the experience and all of the things, I think it's still okay. But my preference for our kids is to be able to expose them to things to see what they like and what they don't like. Eloise was in basketball, and she told us her very favorite part of basketball was standing by on the sidelines. She did not like basketball. Those balls were way too aggressive.
And I think, you got to also like listen to your child and read their experience with it too. To some degree, you want to kind of encourage them to try new things. And sometimes they might not like it the first time they go. And you do have to encourage them to try a couple of times to see if they really, truly like it or not. But then I think, following their cues too. I have one child that you could sign them up for anything and everything, and they would go and they'd be super excited and they'd love every minute of it and they'd want to go again. I have another child who's like, when is the next day we get to stay home the whole day? I want to go nowhere. And she loves to be home. And I don't want to deprive her of that either, because she does go to preschool 5 days a week. And she, and on Saturdays we tend to have activities planned. And on Sundays, she really just wants to be home. And I don't think there's anything with that. She likes to do her little Legos and color her pictures and sit in her pajamas. She's kind of like an old soul. She likes to drink tea and eat toast, and she's very happy. So I think you just have to like also know your child and know what's going to help them thrive too.
That was very wise. I like that.
Do you have anything else? I have a story, but I'm gonna wait. Maybe. I don't know if I'm gonna keep it on or not. So,
do you want to tell your story?
So I don't know if it feels fitting, but it might not be. It might be out of context. I'm not sure yet. Here we go. I was gonna text our travel group today, and I was gonna ask the question: as parents, do you ever feel that you are the one holding your kid back socially amongst the group because you're not in with the other parents?
100%.
Those were the feelings that I had today as I went to hockey. Both kids are in hockey. Let's put that out there. So I have infiltrated now the girls' hockey. I'm good with 90% of all of Eloise's teammates' parents, I know all their names. I got it. Why? Because we had a tournament and we ended up having team lunch. And I'm good socially. If I'm put into a room with people, I can mingle and I got it. I mapped that shit out. I knew everybody's name by the time I left that room.
Mm-hmm.
We're good.
Yeah.
Move over to Emmett's hockey game this morning. I walk into the locker room, I get him ready, and I just go out and sit in the stands, and I don't know one person's fucking name. Not one. I don't even know the coaches' names. I don't know their names. I don't know why. I know one coach, Andy, because he's the one that sends us messages. But I was sitting there and like trying to like help Emmett, like, why don't you go hang out with those kids? No, I don't really know them. You play on the same hockey team with them. There's 15 of them or whatever. So it's hard.
Yeah.
You go to school with them. Well, they're not in my class. And you're like, it's me. I haven't done enough to be accepted into this group. Meanwhile, there's 5 dads coaching on the bench. And you're like, why do you need 5 people over there? This is ridiculous. So anyways, that was my insecurity day.
Were the other parents talking in the stands too?
Oh, talking in the locker room, talking
to each
about
other? Like they knew each other?
Oh yeah. Oh, we had too much to drink last night. Crazy. Like, blah, 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 blah.
That's what they were saying?
Well,
in kindergarten, parent?
Like 2 dads.
Hockey locker room?
They were off, Yeah, they were having this conversation. And like other people were over here talking. And I was just like, I just don't really know. Like, I don't know how to interject myself into that group quite yet because I haven't been forced to. So it feels awkward as a parent to put yourself into that conversation. Oh yeah, we got together last night and I had some On the Rocks aviation and some Cosmos and some wine. I was pretty messed up too last night.
Yeah, it feels weird.
No, not going to put myself into that conversation.
I think that's really true. And I think it's really hard. And I've been there a lot of times. And I think it all depends on the group, right? Like there are certain teams that your kid is on and you like kind of get to know the parents and things are jiving and you can go to lunch and it's great. And then there's other groups that just are not as cohesive and it's hard to break in. Yeah. My oldest son is on a team like that this year and we sit together with all the parents at every game and we kind of have small talk, but I still only know like half of their names. I don't really feel connected with those people. And then you do kind of wonder like what the outcome's going to be there.
Damn it. Do I need to coach this team in order to like,
but I also think hockey's a whole animal, at least in the region in which we live. It certainly helps if you have a certain name, if you have a certain background, if you've been in the game long, and if you're like me, who my son decided to play hockey and I know nothing about hockey except what I've learned over the last decade of taking him.
Yeah.
I mean, still the refs make signs during the game. I'm like, what's the penalty? I don't know what that means.
Here you go, people. Vulnerable parents.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's super hard.
So that was my day this morning.
Yeah. Go back and listen to your How to Make Friends as an Adult episode. Maybe it will help you.
They probably like you more than you think. They just don't know who you are yet.
No, they have no idea who I am.
No, right. Yeah. I think it also, specifically in Emmett's situation, is harder because all of his practices all the time are with all different teams. It's not just his team at practice. So parents will be sitting around and there's like 50 kids out on the ice, 25, 50 kids. And so you don't know who's on your team or not.
Yeah.
So it's going to be okay.
Well, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But
Emmett can make friends. He's fine.
All right.
You're off the hook.
You're off the hook.
Perfect. Heard it here first.
Yeah. I've had those feelings, though. Sometimes it can be hard to incorporate yourself into the group.
Absolutely.
But I literally do go back and think about the liking gap. We talked about this on probably our friend's episode or a different episode where there's a study that shows that when you go and you meet someone and then you step back from that, these researchers asked people, how much do you think that person enjoyed you? And how much did you enjoy that person that you met? And what they found was there was a gap between how much you thought they liked you versus how much they actually liked you, thus the liking gap. In a positive way. People enjoyed people and gave people much more grace than they ever gave themselves. And of course, we are much more critical of ourselves and what we say and how we act versus how we are actually received. So when I am in the locker room and I am like, I don't know, saying, usually I'm a good cheerleader. So I'm like, great job, girls, way to go, good hustle. I don't know, but I'm just putting it out there. And then later I step back and I think, oh man, was that weird? Was that awkward? Was that, I don't know. Do the parents think I'm weird? Then I go back to that study. People statistically like you more than you think they do. So I'm just going to hold on to that.
I think you should.
Yeah. So
there we go.
All right. We're going to wrap up the Surgeon General's warning a little bit here.
Let's do it.
Going back to the stressors. We talked about financial strains. We talked a bit about time demands in that, it being very busy, getting kids to everywhere they need to go. Another interesting thing, though, we are spending more time with our kids being involved in like quality time, especially dads, than ever any generation before.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. But also then takes away from our ability to take time for ourselves. Leisure time, de-stressing time has increased by 154% among fathers.
Wow.
I mean, the numbers were pretty dismal. 2.6 hours per week in 1985 to 6.6 hours in 2022. But still. It's gone up.
Dad sucked back in the day.
They were the breadwinners. Moms were the parents. I don't know.
I saw mine like every other 6 months. It was good.
Moving on. Child's health. We talked about that. Children's safety is another huge stressor on parents. Worries about their children being bullied, kidnapped, abducted, getting beaten up or attacked, or having problems with drugs or alcohol. Just those general worries for your kids.
I think I bet the statistics, and I should look it up while you're going on to the next thing. I firmly believe that we just hear about it so much more. But I bet the statistics on kidnappings and abductions are way down in comparison to what they were. Or maybe they're just the same and we just hear about it more.
I have heard that rumor.
We're so much more aware of when it is happening. Go on, Amy.
But this is definitely different from when we were younger. Firearm-related injury has become the leading cause of death among U.S. children and adolescents ages 1 to 19 years old. And school shootings, or the possibility of one, are a significant source of stress for nearly 3/4 of parents. 74% of parents have responded that they worry about school shootings for their kids. And it's a significant cause of stress.
I think that's super valid.
I know that I have totally laid awake at night thinking about what if there's a school shooting at my kids' school, and what would I do, and how would I get there, and how would I bypass the police to enter the school to get my child. And like, even though that's probably not the right thing, but like there's nothing in my brain that could stand in the way of my child's safety. And, just what would I do in a situation where you feel like you have no control and you lack control?
Or when you get the messages from the school that your school's on lockdown.
I haven't had any of those messages yet, but
I hate to say that, but they'll be coming. I think it's really real. And when in those moments, it's like you don't know what the situation is. It could be a medical emergency. It could be a threat. It could be so many things, and they don't tell you. They just say your school is on lockdown, and it is really scary. And I think it is something that people legitimately worry about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a real thing. I mean, firearm-related injury, leading cause of death. And even beyond school shootings, I know that I've had the conversation with both of my kids over the past couple of years. What if you're at, playing the what if game? What if you're at a friend's house and your friend picks up his dad's gun? What do you do? And going through those situations, trying to prepare them the most that you can, and giving them those tools to hopefully be successful. And it's amazing how much they take that to heart. It wasn't a real gun. It was a very lifelike looking toy gun, fake gun. And it was at like a cousin's house or something like that. And Emmett went and told an adult right away. He left the room. He told an adult right away. And it was
Good
like,
for
he
him.
told me, I knew what to do, Mom. So they listen to you. So it's important to have those conversations too. But definitely, I know I'm not alone in that worry and that fear and anxiety. So
Absolutely.
All right. So,
do you have an answer for us?
I do. Today's world definitely isn't more dangerous than when you were growing up. You grew up, if you are somewhere between 35 and 40, you grew up in the most dangerous generation ever, period. 1991 being the most crime-riddled year ever. In 1960, the rate was per violent crime, 161 per every 100,000 people. By 1991, it was 768 per 100,000. And as we sit today, it's below 100 per 100,000.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good stats. We just hear about it more, know about it more, and worry about it maybe more.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. All right. We spoke already on the 5th point from the Surgeon General, parental isolation and loneliness. We talked a bit about technology and social media. And then the last point, the last stressor for parents, cultural pressures and children's futures. You want to set them up for success. You want them to be the best people that they can be, and however much of a role you play in that.
If they're not lawyers or doctors, they're shit. So
jokes.
Get your kids together.
Matt is definitely not a lawyer or a doctor. Jokes.
Definitely not the best version of myself, but I could be a doctor now.
So what does the Surgeon General say that we do about all of this? What's the solution? They talk a little bit of how they want things to change.
Okay. Hit us.
And number one, they say culturally we need to shift our perspective and value parenting more as a society. Go back to that village mentality. Go back to that taking care of each other mentality. Going back to, supporting each other in raising families instead of the whole mentality of, well, you chose to have kids, so it's your problem. No more of that. More of the uplifting each other and parents and families, and seeing families as a necessary and important thing for our culture and society, and helping families
be more holistic.
Well, or just supportive. Yeah. Employers, they had an entire page on how employers can help support families. And they say employers need to make policies and policy changes to support families and kids. For example, giving, sick time and not being punitive when parents with young children are out because they have to go pick up their kid from daycare because daycare demands that you go and pick them up for a fever. employers being more supportive. They say talking openly about the stress and struggles of parenting is really important, like what we are doing here now. Krista and I were talking earlier about how in our friend group, us women, we talk about parenting and the struggles and run things by each other all the time. We vent, we talk, we support each other. We tell each other we're doing a good job. We need to continue to do that.
Yeah.
We also kind of spoke about how, I asked Matt, well, do you guys do that? And your response was?
No, not really. We don't have long, in-depth discussion about parenting, or it's more or less small, like, oh, the kids were monsters tonight. Like,
Small talk venting.
Yeah, small talk venting. Nothing
So-
serious, nothing major. Like,
Yeah. So they say all parents then should find that safe space to have those areas to share your struggles, concerns, just be able to feel less of that isolation and more of that connection with others. They also say fostering that connection to combat loneliness and isolation, and then treating the mental health issues that you currently have. So perhaps you have some postpartum depression or anxiety or some burnout and overwhelm from the pressures of living and working and putting your kids in 5 different extracurriculars at a time. And, who knows if we're doing it right? Right?
Right?
yep.
If it's all too much and you worry that you are having some depression and anxiety surrounding your life, get treatment, seek help. They really encourage that as well. So they also outline a plan for what government can do: maternity leave, parental leave, childcare subsidies, etc. Feel free to read it. 36 pages.
Amy did.
I sure did.
Appreciate all your highlights.
Yes, these are the highlights. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's
Parenting
it.
is awesome. It sucks. It's great. Prepare yourself.
Any closing thoughts, remarks?
No, I just think I stand by. It's the best, hardest job,
The best, hardest job.
Yeah.
For sure.
but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can be your community. Please write in if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, comment. Bring that community, what your experience has been with parenting. If you've had any of these struggles, what resonated with you, or if you disagree with the Surgeon General's warning, let us know that too.
Yeah. Next episode, I think next 1 or 2 episodes will be a listener write-in episode. We got 6, 7, 8 stories to go through. So we'll figure out which ones are going to make it. And
really
do the
interesting
deal.
questions, really interesting situations. So thanks for sharing that with us. We think that it's, quite a privilege to have people trust us enough with their life situation to want our thoughts and advice. So
It's awesome.
You coming back?
When you'll have me.
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.